Hey guys, it's giveaway time. And here at 101, we are going to give out over 3,000 pounds or dollars, depending on where you are in the world, to spend on anything you want at any online UFC merchandise store. All you have to do is keep your eyes peeled for a code to flash on the screen like this one right here. Then head to the store and hit apply at checkout. This will be on a first come, first served basis. So make sure you have your post notifications on. Each code will be worth at least $100 or pounds or more. And sometimes there might be several in each video. So make sure that you watch all the way to the end to catch them all. And this whole thing will be running throughout Christmas and into New Year. Full details about the whole giveaway are in the description below. So check it out. What's up, everybody? Laura Sanko here, and I am joined once again by the man, the myth, the legend, Dean Thomas. Dean, I appreciate you being here. It was so good. Apparently, we had to do it twice. I totally messed that up. It was so nice we had to do it twice. Jeez Louise. That was terrible. That was bad. But you're back. Thank you.
I'm back. Hey, listen, that was good. And but listen, we're doing it again. Can you believe this? They gave us a second chance. So
yeah, I just need to find something that rhymes with again. But anyway,
okay.
We're going to talk a little UFC 282. We're going to go over the main event. And man, it's the last numbered card of the year. It kind of snuck up on me. I don't know about you, but I guess right off the top, I just want to talk to you about the changes we've seen in this main event and what the implications are for the division. Of course, Yuri Prochazka with apparently a horrific shoulder injury. I don't think I've seen any. I've looked for details about it, and I don't see anybody providing any specific details, but regardless, it's a bad injury. And Glover Teixeira, rightly so, didn't really want to fight a completely different style fighter on very, very short notice. So we have a new main event, and it's for a title. Were you surprised that this was the one?
I mean, no, I'm not. And there's a lot to unpack there. And I think that first we need to start off with Yuri. And first we got to give him his props for relinquishing the belt. You know what I'm saying? Because in an age where we know how hard it is to get it, and sometimes you don't get it back. And these champions are so like, no, why are you doing this? And he just was like, yo, all right, the division has to move on. I'm going to give the belt up. He was like, yo, because a lot of guys would have been like, interim title or complained about it. But Yuri, he has integrity as a martial artist and said, listen, let's just keep the show rolling.
Or just at the very least, a lot of people I think would have dragged it out a little bit more, because I think what people forget sometimes is that just by virtue of being champion, a lot of sponsorships, a lot of appearances, opportunities, whatever come your way. And then as soon as you're not, some of those go away. So that's why a lot of people, if they do think that they need to get up, they're going to wait as long as possible. But I agree with you, man. It was really impressive to see the martial artist that he is, to do that. I don't recall another person so quickly and so willingly and so just, forthrightly, nope, titles, I'm vacating it. I'll heal up and I'll be back. But it also, to me, it shows a lot of confidence in his ability to get back.
For sure. I think he understands. Well, I think he's always had a belief about himself and a belief in himself. And rightfully so. I mean, he's done a lot of good things. I mean, he's just his fight against Glover Teixeira shows that he believes in himself, because he never gave up on himself in a fight that he was losing, that he was able to submit a guy who's, not known for getting submitted. So he's got a lot of belief in himself, and you got to be proud of him for that. He's got to be proud of himself. Now on to Glover. I think Glover had a pretty, I don't like the way he reacted at first through the changes, right? Because I think he made it seem like he was getting he was getting the short end of the stick here. And I don't necessarily agree with that he's getting the short end of the stick here. I think that it's just one of them situations where the UFC tried to make it work for him. I think they did everything they could to make it work for him. They gave him the rematch. I wasn't even sure that was going to happen. They gave him the rematch, and then he gets hurt, and then they say, okay, you can still fight Ankalaev. They wasn't going to give him Jan. Like, no one really kind of wanted to see that. Yeah. And I'm sure that's what he wanted. Like, best case scenario for him, he's like, yo, let me fight a guy that I done destroyed.
I ran through. Exactly.
Yeah. So they wasn't going to let that happen. So they said, okay, fight Ankalaev. And he said, I need more time. And they were like, well, we got to move on then. So I get it. I totally get it. I understand. I think that when he first came out, he was like, yeah, how could they do this to me? But
Yeah,
I think after a while, I think he kind of realized that they're not really screwing him over. They're giving you more time like you wanted. So they're just going to do a
exactly.
fight without you.
Yeah, but I do also understand at least the decision from his perspective because I mean, how old is he? 42? Is
Yeah,
that right?
42. Yeah.
42. There comes a point in your career where you don't have to take last minute fights. You don't have to fight every guy they put in front of you exactly when they put the guy in front of you. And I know that that's not something we talk about very often because we love the Cowboy Cerrones of the world and the anytime, anyone, any place attitude. But I'm sorry, like at some point you earn the right, whether by age or by number of fights or what you've contributed to the company, to be like, this one I need a little bit more time. And so I can understand his perspective, but I know what you're saying too. With the UFC is a business, and they made the appropriate moves for that division and for the card and for the company. So we have a new main event, and that was the co-main event. It's Magomed Ankalaev versus Jan Blachowicz, and I'm sorry, but it's a really interesting fight. I mean, I don't know that it's the sexiest fight for a lot of fans, but when you look at their skill sets, it is an interesting fight. And I want to go through some of the stats. I totally forgot to go through stats last time you and I did this, but I want to get your initial impression about the fight first, and then I'll run through some of the stats I think are pretty interesting.
Well, I mean, I was never, to be honest with you, I was never really high on Jan's skill set. I mean, I thought he was a good champion. I never thought he was great. Um, so I'm not really looking forward to. I mean, I'm not really giving him that much of a shot in this fight. I think that
Mm,
Ankalaev is the better fighter. I think that he's earned his way to this spot, and I think that we're going to see Ankalaev the champion. And I think for all the people right now that are on the Russian bandwagon, this is just going to add another caboose to that because I think that Ankalaev, I think he was a guy that a lot of people were afraid of in the for a while, didn't want
yeah,
to fight him, and now he kind of put himself in a position where you couldn't deny him, and now
yeah.
I think he's going to be the next champ.
Yeah, that bandwagon is getting longer and longer and longer and longer the more we see these Russian fighters coming through there. I'm interested though, is your opinion of Jan in this fight colored by what Glover did against him? And do you think it's possible that, it was just it was a bad night or something like that? I mean, I guess is that coloring your opinion, or is that opinion based on no, like lots of the fights in totality lead me to believe that he was never going to be champion for a super long time.
Yeah, I never thought he was going to be champion for a super long time, and I don't want to take away from his accomplishments because he's a guy who didn't have a start off as a great career. Like he
Yeah.
wasn't a promising fighter. And I think that at the end of the day, that's what he is he's not, is that he's an overachiever. I think that he's
Mhm.
had some good moments to put him in a position to get the title, but I never saw him as a guy who was very reliable, who you can count on to in his super talent. I think he was a guy who worked really hard and got the opportunities and took advantage of them and had some key fights that he won. But at the end of the day, like he's still the guy who Glover beat up, and
Yeah.
um, I think Thiago Santos knocked him out, and so he's had some downs,
Hmm.
and I think that's more indicative of who he really is. And he's not super talented. He's not super fast. He's got good power, but he's not super fast. And I think that, I mean, even if you look at the fight against uh Israel Adesanya, Israel, it was a lot closer than what people thought. Like he laid on Israel to get the win. When they were on the feet striking, Israel was piecing him up.
Hmm. The slickness and the speed for
Yeah.
sure. Well, in that case, I mean, he's got a tall mountain to climb in Ankalaev, but let's take a look at some of these stats, or I'll read them to you, Dean. Um, Let me go here to the right tab. So just kind of overall, their records respectively in the UFC. Jan Blachowicz 12-6 in the UFC with 5 knockouts, 2 submissions and 5 decisions, and then Magomed Ankalaev 9-1 in the UFC, 5 knockouts and 4 decisions. Of course, that one loss was to Paul Craig, a fight he was winning handily, and then Paul Craig going to Paul Craig when he does his thing, got the triangle. Jan Blachowicz has a 3-inch reach advantage, 78 inches versus 75 for Magomed Ankalaev. 39 years old for Jan, 30 for Magomed Ankalaev, so a little bit of youth on the side of Ankalaev. Interestingly enough, a lot of their other stats are not all that dissimilar. You could definitely say that Ankalaev is a little bit more accurate of a striker. He's got 54.7% accuracy as opposed to 49.7, but really not a drastic difference between the two. Both of them have roughly the same output, 3.55 strikes per minute for Jan Błachowicz and 3.67 for Magomed Ankalaev. So really, I mean, as you kind of work through these stats, there aren't massive differences. The one difference that is fairly sizable is in their takedown defense. And Magomed Ankalaev has phenomenal takedown defense. And when you kind of dig into that percentage, so he's got an 86.4% takedown defense. But when you dig into that, which is the part I always find really interesting, because he has been shot on, sorry, I'm rereading this. He's been shot on 22 times, and his opponents have only landed 3. Jan's been shot on 48 times, and his opponents have landed 16 of those takedowns. And on the flip side, Magomed's takedown accuracy may only be 33.3%, but he has significantly more takedowns attempted. So all of that to say, they have roughly the same output in terms of like where they strike, whether it be to the head, body, or leg. They all kind of splice out the same in terms of that. And then in terms of where they like to do their work, distance, clinch, and ground, fairly similar there as well. But as you might imagine, Magomed Ankalaev favors the ground and pound a little bit more than Jan does. So sorry to bore you with all that, Dean, but I just wanted to provide some color for, some of the X's and O's of this fight, because I think there's some interesting things to talk about. And in particular, I'm fascinated by Magomed and his ability to really, really utilize those southpaw tools in particular.
Well, I love that you broke out the stats, because it's interesting to hear the stats compared to what I see, because the stats don't always tell the story. And what I see seems a little different. When I see Ankalaev strike, it looks like he's more patient as he's waiting for the big shot. And when I see Jan strike, it just looks like he's kind of uncomfortable and a little slower in those areas. So to me, I think it's a big difference in their striking. But I'm sorry, Laura, what was the question?
No, I was just saying, like, I think in this fight in particular, because Jan has done well against southpaws. He loves to land that left hook, does a good job with that. Again, facing a southpaw. And, a bit of a step up in competition for Magomed Ankalaev. Jan's been in this position before. He's had the belt before. So I guess I'm interested to see if this is a closer fight than maybe, than maybe you think it might be.
Well, it could be. And here's why. Because we don't know how Ankalaev is going to handle the big moment. And I hate to sound so, I'm not don't want to sound racist here, but wouldn't I know that's always a bad sign when you got to preface it with I don't want to be racist, but sometimes when we've seen some of the bigger Russian fighters, they haven't been as aggressive as some of the smaller ones and handle the pressure the same. And because some of the smaller ones, I don't know, for whatever reason, they just seem to handle the pressure a little bit better. So when you look at some of the bigger ones, like the 85 pounders, 205ers, and the heavyweights, they just don't handle it the same. They get
is that a fear of having your gas leave you, do you think?
It could be. I don't know what it is. For whatever reason, it just hasn't seemed to be the same like the lighter weights. When we see the lighter weights are just like on fire and they're just buzzing. But for whatever reason, they haven't handled the big moments. So if Ankalaev goes out there and can't handle this big moment, he can lose this fight. There's no doubt in my mind that Jan doesn't have what it takes to beat him, because Jan is a hard worker. Now, understand, his success came from hard work. So he's going to look at these moments like, this is my shot. I can't let this go. Yeah. While Ankalaev is like, I know I'm talented, but I'm nervous and be hesitant.
Yeah. And he is, as you say, very, very patient, very calculated. I think something that maybe gets not talked about enough with him is just his pure fight IQ. I mean, he's just so conservative in there and so level-headed in terms of how he approaches the fight and when he decides to make the moves that he decides to make, and the way that he puts his combinations together ends a lot of his combinations with that beautiful head kick that he has. and does it from he can do it from a really far kicking range. He can do it from a close kicking range where he doesn't completely open up his hip. His hip, I should say. It's really impressive to see. But with this fight being moved from 3 rounds to now 5 rounds, does that favor one or the other, or do you think it doesn't really matter?
I don't think it matters. I think both of these guys fight at a slow enough pace that they could fight 10 rounds because of their pacing. Like they're not go-getters. They're not going to really go after it. At moments, I think Jan will go after it to try to, like, if it's close, Jan will be the one to try to steal the round, I think, because again, he's the harder worker of the two. But I think Ankalaev, I mean, we saw when he fought Thiago Santos, there were times where he was so hesitant because I think he was so respected the power of Thiago Santos. Now, Thiago Santos is a little bit more explosive than Jan, so he, is more reason to be hesitant. But it's interesting that these stats are so similar because to me they're so different in terms of fighting. They're just, I see like a completely different fighter. And Ankalaev is so clean, he's so smooth, he's so skilled, but again, like he's always waiting for the perfect moment. If he allows nerves to get in there, we might find a guy overthinking and underdoing, and that's a problem if he starts underdoing.
Which speaks to that accuracy stat, right? I mean, he's got really good striking accuracy, and I think when you have that patient approach, that's when you're going to see that reflected in the statistics like that. Where, as you say, Jan is a little bit more. It's not that he's a super high volume fighter. He is also a fairly medium to low volume fighter. But when he does decide to go, he does put together some long combinations. And for me, I think Jan, whereas Magomed does really, really well at the longest range possible because he does such a good job of closing the distance with a combination, then, like I said earlier, ending with a kick. And then you've got Jan, who also likes to kick, goes to the body a lot with his kicks. But some of his best work, his knockouts, have come in the pocket or in those situations where you're breaking from the pocket or you're breaking from the clinch, and he's able to land that hook. So in your mind, is it best for Magomed Ankalaev to just stay on the outside regardless? Don't try to grapple, don't try to clinch, just make this an outside fight?
Yeah, I think that's because I think he's going to have the speed advantage by a lot. So that's where he's going to do his best work, is being on the outside, using his speed advantage, using feints to open up some opportunities for him to get in, do his work, and get out before Jan has a chance to respond. Now, you're right. Jan has a good kick. Like he's and that kick, his right kick, can be a deciding factor, could be a very deciding factor in this fight if he's able to get it off on Ankalaev. So Ankalaev is going to have to really use his footwork and his angles and the speed to be able to avoid that right kick.
Obviously you think really highly of the skill set of Magomed Ankalaev, and I totally understand why. On the flip side of that, if you were cornering Jan, what's your game plan? What's your biggest, I guess, X factor or piece of advice? Like, this is what we have to do in this fight in order to win, or in order to give ourselves the best chances possible.
He's really got to outwork him. He's really got to dog him out. And I think he's got to hurt him at some point. Like that's an equalizer, just being able to hurt somebody. And Jan has the potential to do that with his power, with his kicking game, and he's just a powerful guy. So he's got to be able to hurt Ankalaev. Now, for me, I think he should go to the body early because it's such an easier target to hit. He's got the reach advantage. So go to the body early, show Ankalaev that you can hurt him, and that'll slow Ankalaev down a little bit because he's not going to take a lot of chances if he knows he's going to get hurt.
I'm interested too about the mentality of Jan coming into this, because not only is there the idea that he all of a sudden finds himself back in the spot where, this is an interesting division where it may have taken him, 1 or 2 fights more to get himself back in this shot. And here he is, all of a sudden fighting for a title again. And then you add to that, I don't know if you watched the Countdown. Did you see Countdown?
I did not see the Countdown. No.
So in Countdown, he talks about how he has a new head coach, same gym, but there's a new coach that has sort of taken over that head coaching role, who was initially just primarily Jan's wrestling coach. But Jan made a comment that I thought was really telling, and maybe I'm reading too much into it, but he said, I feel like he really, really wants to be here and is dedicated to as dedicated to this fight as I am, or something along those lines. I'm not getting the quote exactly, but it made it sound like maybe in the past he didn't feel the full commitment from his other coaching staff. And I mean, what a difference that can make coming into, a huge opportunity like this, to be working with a new guy, potentially some new tricks up his sleeve.
Well, not necessarily that, but what happens is you start to put a lot of pressure on yourself when you feel like it's just you, and these other guys are here because they either want the money or they want the glory to say that they came to the UFC. You know how it is. Like, you go to, oh, let me come. So everybody wants to be there. But when you got a guy who's really riding with you,
Mhm.
who's ready to die for you, sit right at your side, like, that gives you extra motivation. It takes the pressure off you to say, you know what, man, I'm not doing this just for me. I'm
Yeah.
doing this for them too. This is my guy. I need to be out there and perform for them too. And that's dangerous. That's a dangerous combination. In addition, for a guy like Jan, who already thrives off of his grit. So when you add extra grit, another motivator for him, we got to fight here. I think
Yeah.
I think this could be closer than what, I don't know what the odds are on it, but I
I
think
don't
this could
either.
be closer. I
Yeah.
think because skill wise, to me, it's a no brainer. Ankalaev is head and shoulders in terms of skill over Jan, but you can't count him out, man. He's a
Yeah.
dog and he's got that grit. And now if he's got a team behind him that believes in him, and he can now believe in his team as well, they can go out there and fight hard and do some work.
I think it's going to be a good one. Regardless, I think it's going to be an interesting one for sure. And I mean, Magomed has the opportunity to extend that winning streak to, I think, 10. It would be. I mean, which really spells a lot of promise for a guy in this particular division, that if he does become champion, he might be able to retain that for a good long time. He might have that well-rounded of a skill set, but as you say, Jan Blachowicz, never count him out. He's tough as they come. He's durable, and I mean, you can never sleep on Polish power. So
No, you can't, and he's such a hard worker. Like, when he fights, you could see it. Like, you see, he fights with a lot of desire.
yeah,
That's at the forefront of his skill set, his desire. Now, desire doesn't win fights, so that's the problem. So I think that could be the downfall in this fight, though. It's
yeah.
just
Desire gets you through tough moments, but it doesn't
yeah,
build your skill set
no,
in the
no,
middle of the fight.
no.
Well, that's it for the main event. I mean, it's going to be a good one, regardless of which way it goes. UFC 282 coming to you from T-Mobile Arena this Saturday, ESPN Plus pay-per-view. Thank you so much, Dean Thomas. Guys, if you like this, lots more where this came from. Hick. Oh my word, Dean. It's like I don't talk for a living. Hit like, hit subscribe. And Dean and I are going to talk about the co-main event as well. So take a look for that video too. See you there, guys.